So last night, I saw The Long Walk, and this movie was beautiful. I think it had a lot to say thematically through its many characters and dystopian society, which tied in with the symbolism of that really obscure ending. So I wanted to give my research, analysis, and breakdown of the commentary and the meaning with some comparison as well to the original Stephen King novel. So to break this movie down, we'll use three themes. One, illusion of choice, where we'll discuss the setting, the society, the competition, and the social commentary. Two, dignity amongst death, where we'll discuss the symbolism of the characters like Garrity, McVries, Baker, Olsen, Barkovich, and Stebbins. And three, cycle of despair, where we'll discuss the symbolism of the ending and how it compares to the symbolism of the ending in the book, and so much more. Hope you enjoy. Theme number one, illusion of choice. This film takes place in an alternate version of the United States. It's this dystopian America that's ruled by a totalitarian government. And this fascist regime rule has led to some kind of economic collapse. From what we see and hear of this world, there seems to be this massive divide between countless poor and very few extremely rich. And this backdrop perfectly sets the stage for the film to be a social commentary on the effects of corrupt government, false messages of hope, and a rigid system of economic divide. As the Major describes, the Long Walk competition was created to encourage and inspire citizens across America to work harder towards the life they dream of, as they watch 50 boys put their lives on the line for everything they've ever wanted. And of course, this entire competition is only built to create the illusion of hope, success, and choice. The film addresses this concept when we hear Garrity describe this idea of a tunnel to a better life. He suggests that if you grow up in a system where life is completely unpleasant and unsafe, and the voices of authority told you there's one little tunnel that you need to go through for a safer, more successful life, everyone would make the decision to go through that tunnel. And he goes on to describe that setting up a world like that is simply a method to get us to do what they want us to do and go where they want us to go, while making us feel like it was all our choice. And this analogy runs parallel to the competition itself. Every boy has entered into this competition with a 98% chance that they will die, and only a 2% chance that they will survive and win the cash prize. By these odds, we as the audience can assume how brutal and grim life must be outside of the competition for them to actually volunteer to participate in this competition. So really, as Garrity describes, it isn't much of a choice at all. It's all a manipulative mirage the system puts in front of people to motivate them to work harder and follow the rules, selling a false dream to both the contestants and the audience. But the film isn't only a commentary on corruption and false messages. It also discusses a lot about how this type of system shapes us as individuals, and the different decisions each of us make to navigate through the hardship and cruelty of life. And the film uses this competition to expand on this idea. A life of financial hardship and limited opportunity can feel like this long, hot, painful walk. It can be repetitive, mundane, cruel, and ugly with all kinds of personalities along the way, which brings us to the characters in theme number two, dignity amongst death. When it comes to my analysis of the characters, I'll start with McVries. McVries has the most positive, virtuous attitude toward the world, telling his friends and competitors to appreciate the beauty of the world within all of the madness, unfairness, and cruelty. The trees, the fresh air, a rainbow if they're lucky to see one. He even sees the beauty in the spectators of the Long Walk. While it's obviously not the best thing to find entertainment in a competition that tortures and kills young boys, McVries still respects their sense of togetherness and love for their families. And if he wins the prize, he wants to give back to his community with new opportunity and a much better life. Garrity, just like McVries, is incredibly warm-hearted and supportive, as the two of them risk their own lives and success in the race to help others through the race. However, Garrity's intentions behind joining the race are vindictive and impulsive. Midway through the film, we learn Garrity's father was killed by the Major for exposing his son to music and art forbidden by the government. Therefore, Garrity wants to use his wish to have one of the soldiers' guns and use that to shoot and kill the Major. So Garrity has ambitions to dismantle this oppressive system with acts of rebellion and vengeance. But the intensities of his emotions cause him to choose a method that is far less likely to lead to long-term progress and way more likely to lead to a quick demise. The supporting characters certainly have their own thematic significance too. Some serve as examples for more minor themes, like Baker, who highlights the value of money and the impact it can have on our family's happiness and well-being. While it isn't the key to happiness, obviously, he and McVries, however, emphasize how it can relieve a lot of stress, provide a lot of opportunity, and grant a lot of freedom. Olsen's morals in the film around waste and resource conservation highlight the topic of one individual's impact on the world and their ability to uphold their values. Do the ethics of one member of society really make any difference when that society is run by unethical people? Olsen's outlook is yes. Olsen stands firmly on his values, practices, and beliefs, which plays a big part in why he's remained in the race for so long while looking almost unconscious. When he surrenders and he takes out that piece of gum, we see his values and beliefs betray him, which is why he screams, "I was wrong," in his final moments before he's shot. A very fascinating character in the film is Barkovich, who represents how, as death approaches, we feel a stronger and stronger desire to release the deepest feelings in our conscience, often the ones we've been burying our entire lives. Throughout the race, he keeps up this bully defense mechanism to overcome his deepest feelings of insecurity and his guilt for Rank's death. But as he gets closer and closer to death, we see him try to redeem himself and earn forgiveness from the boys and open up about his deepest insecurities in a final attempt to release this stain that he can't bear to have on his conscience before he dies. So, in a final desperate attempt for self-control, self-punishment, and self-forgiveness, he kills himself. But the supporting character with probably the most thematically pivotal death is Stebbins. Stebbins calls himself the rabbit because he sees himself as only a pacemaker for this race, like the mechanical rabbit pacemaker in many dog and horse races. And the metaphor makes a lot of sense when he opens up to Garrity and McVries about his backstory. Stebbins is an abandoned bastard son of the Major. His entire life, he never felt a true sense of family and belonging. So he entered the race to hopefully finally be acknowledged and possibly accepted by his biological father. However, he came to terms with how many bastard sons the Major likely has and the pointlessness in trying to earn approval from someone who's the absolute worst of humanity. So the rabbit analogy refers to Stebbins' feeling of emptiness, a hollow soul pushing himself through this race for no good reason, racing alongside competitors with true humanity who have dreams and ambitions and have developed these warm friendships between individuals who they know are going to die within the next few days or even hours. The rabbit analogy also speaks to Stebbins' feeling of being inevitably put into the race by the system that created him. His decision to be in the race wasn't really his decision. It was inevitable. And sadly, when Stebbins comes to terms with all of this, he drops out. The pacemaker is never meant to finish the race. But although Stebbins believes this metaphor only applies to him, it largely applies to everyone else in the race, especially that last part. As we've mentioned before, there's a systemic cycle that generates young men who involuntarily choose to join the annual race. It speaks to systemic oppression in our real world and how it drives certain communities to make poor decisions that threaten their health, well-being, and safety. But to them, it feels like the only way. Theme number 3, cycle of despair. In the final scene, we're down to the two final competitors, Garrity and McVries. At first, McVries voluntarily kneels to let Garrity win the competition, likely because he believes Garrity has more to live for and he probably couldn't bear to see his closest friend in the race die. But of course, Garrity won't let this happen, so he pulls McVries back up to just walk a little longer. But before McVries can even notice, Garrity kneels himself and is shot by the Major. And when McVries witnesses Garrity shot by the same man that shot Garrity's father, McVries has this sudden change in philosophy. He's let go completely of his initial belief of hope for the future and finding the silver lining in nature and humanity when he witnesses the worst of humanity destroy the best in the most cruel, brutal way. He now takes on Garrity's exact initial outlook, taking vengeance in an impulsive, brutal act of rebellion. And in the next moment, the crowd has disappeared and we see McFreeze continue to walk down the silent city street. And to interpret this ending the best way I can, I need to compare it with the events of the book's ending. So in the novel, when McFreeze voluntarily kneels, he does get shot, and 2 racers remain. Stebbins is still in the race with Garrity. Stebbins eventually collapses, and Garrity is the victor. However, Garrity doesn't kill the Major. He has no capacity to act at all upon any desire for vengeance. However, also, he doesn't stop walking. He keeps on walking, as if he will never stop racing. And in the last moments of the book, we read he's endlessly chasing this shadowy figure ahead of him. Many analysts of the book consider this shadowy figure to be a symbol of hope, or death, or revenge. And I think all of their interpretations are correct in their own way. But I think we can get more specific. I think if we look at this book's ending and this movie's ending, we can make a very sound interpretation for both because it looks like they're largely making the same point. The fact that in both endings, McFreeze and Garrity both continue to walk even after they've won the competition speaks to the never-ending cycle of systemic oppression and this continuous, endless chase of the mirage that this system has created for its individuals. This illusion of agency, choice, success, justice, and change. We're also chasing these much darker desires like vengeance, retribution, punishment, and death. I think the shadowy figure in this book represents all of these desires, never to be caught by the individual. And in the movie's case, the same concept is captured just in a different way. When Garrity was killed by the Major, McFreeze fell into the same cycle of darker desires that Garrity fell into when his father was killed by the Major. The same cyclical, endless path that we see both of them walk down in both the book and the movie. And for those looking for a more practical explanation for the movie's ending, as the road is suddenly empty for McFreeze, he was likely shot as soon as he shot the Major. But the more important idea here is that a young man willing to love the world amongst the many horrors of his traumatic past was eventually broken, successfully broken by the system that built him. Alright, this is my analysis. I can't wait to discuss your ideas and thoughts, and if you still have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you later.